Duke of Cornwall, and takes on the responsibilities for the Duchy of Cornwall.
1 minute ago, everything changed for Queen Camilla. Princess Anne and Prince William have allegedly joined forces inside Buckingham Palace, and the target of that alliance is the woman who spent decades destroying Diana's marriage from the inside. Sources suggest what Anne and William have set in motion is not a spontaneous reaction. It is a coordinated, deliberate campaign. Anne's institutional authority, William's financial stranglehold over the duchy, both allegedly deployed in the same direction at the same time. Camilla's family access is allegedly gone. Her ceremonial footprint is allegedly shrinking. Her influence inside the institution she fought 30 years to enter is allegedly evaporating. Diana waited her entire life for justice. Sources suggest her son and her sister-in-law are finally delivering it. The strike nobody saw coming. 3 weeks ago, a senior palace aide made a phone call that sources describe as deeply unusual, not to the press, or to a government official, not to any of the standard channels that royal communications flow through when something significant is being managed, to a lawyer, on behalf of Princess Anne, about Camilla. Sources familiar with that call say the conversation lasted less than 10 minutes. Short, precise. The kind of call made by someone who has already decided what they want and simply needs confirmation that the path is clear. By the time that call ended, sources suggest something had been set in motion inside Buckingham Palace that nobody in Camilla's camp had anticipated, and nobody in Camilla's camp knew how to stop. Here is the core question this story has to answer from the very beginning. Why now? Anne has been part of this royal family for 73 years. She watched Charles and Diana's marriage collapse in real time. She watched Camilla move from mistress to wife to queen consort, and all this happened across 3 decades of the most extraordinary public rehabilitation any figure in modern British history has attempted. She managed her feelings through all of it, professionally, privately, with the discipline that defines everything she does. So why, in 2026, is she allegedly moving? The answer, sources suggest, has 2 parts, and understanding both of them is essential to understanding everything that follows. The first part is William. William's position inside the royal family has changed fundamentally over the past 18 months. He is no longer simply the heir waiting patiently in the wings. He is the man making real decisions about real assets with real consequences for real people. The Duchy of Cornwall. 1.2 billion pounds of land, property, and investment. His to control entirely. Annabel Elliott's removal from the duchy payroll was the first public signal of how William intended to use that control. Camilla's sister. Interior designer. On the royal payroll for nearly 2 decades under Charles. Gone the moment William took over. Replaced with William's own people. His friends, the godparents of his children. That decision sent a message inside the palace that required no translation.
Duke of Cornwall, and takes on the responsibilities.
The era of Charles is ending. The era of William has begun, and in William's era, proximity to the crown is earned by loyalty to William, not by marriage to his father. Anne watched that decision. Sources suggest she approved of it completely, and sources suggest it opened a conversation between Anne and William that had been waiting years to happen. The second part is Diana.
In a car accident, and that her partner, Dodie, fired.
August 31st, 2027 will mark 30 years since Diana died in that Paris tunnel. 3 decades since the world watched 2 young boys walk behind their mother's coffin through the streets of London. 3 decades since a nation wept in a way that genuinely shocked the royal family into a recognition it had long resisted. William was 15 years old that day. He is now 43. A husband and a father of 3 children of his own. A man who has spent his entire adult life carrying grief in the particular way that public figures must carry it, privately, carefully, and almost entirely alone. He has never, in nearly 30 years of public life, made a direct statement connecting his feelings about Camilla to his feelings about his mother's suffering. He has never needed to. His actions have been making that statement for him. And sources suggest Anne, who watched Diana suffer during those years in a way that left marks that never fully faded, made a decision sometime in the past several months. She was done waiting, done allowing institutional loyalty to constrain private conviction, done watching Camilla occupy spaces, literal and symbolic, that sources suggest Anne believes belong to Diana's legacy rather than to the woman who helped destroy Diana's marriage.
When I'm in London, I tend to sort of pack it in when I'm in London.
She was done being the disciplined, professional, and unimpeachable Princess Royal who keeps her feelings locked behind 30 years of royal duty. The phone call to the lawyer was allegedly the first move. Sources suggest it was not the last. And Camilla, sources say, is only now beginning to understand the full scope of what has allegedly been set in motion against her. The archives. History as a weapon. There is a room at Windsor Castle that most people never think about. No tourists visit it, and no official photographs have ever been taken inside it. Also, no documentary crew has ever been granted access to film its contents. It is called the Royal Archives, and it contains something that certain people inside Buckingham Palace are allegedly now very nervous about: the truth. Not the managed, carefully curated, officially approved version of royal history that fills authorized biographies and palace-sanctioned documentaries. The unfiltered, unedited, privately recorded truth of what actually happened inside the British royal family, especially during the most turbulent decades of the 20th century. Letters written in private, diaries kept without any expectation of future publication, internal correspondence between family members, advisors, and household staff during the years when Charles and Diana's marriage was visibly and catastrophically collapsing. All of it stored and preserved. All of it subject to strict access controls that have kept its most sensitive contents away from public eyes for decades. Princess Anne has access to those materials at a level very few people outside the immediate royal family possess, and sources suggest she has been using it. Now here is the core question worth sitting with from the very beginning of this section. What exactly is in those archives from the 1980s and 90s that certain people allegedly do not want surfacing right now?
A wonderful new label is Diana's Unstable.
Because the public record of Charles and Diana's marriage is already extensive. The 1992 separation, the 1993 Camilla Gate tapes, Charles's 1994 television confession of the affair, Diana's Panorama interview in 1995, the divorce finalized in 1996, Diana's death in 1997. All of that is documented and made public. It has been analyzed, debated, and relitigated across 30 years of books, documentaries, and royal commentary. So what could be in those archives that goes beyond what is already known? Sources suggest the answer lies not in dramatic new revelations, but in specificity, in detail. In the private, contemporaneous written record of who knew what and when, who advised what and why, who facilitated what and how. The public record tells you that Charles and Camilla's affair continued throughout his marriage to Diana. That is not disputed. What the public record does not fully contain is the internal institutional dimension of that situation. The private correspondence that allegedly documents how certain people inside the royal household managed the affair, how Diana's concerns were allegedly handled, how requests for support were allegedly received and responded to, the specific mechanics of how one of the most powerful institutions in the world allegedly managed a situation that was causing one of its members profound and documented suffering. Sources familiar with Anne's alleged archival review suggest the materials from this period tell a story about institutional failure that goes significantly beyond what any publicly available source has ever documented. And Anne allegedly finds that story important, not for personal reasons. Sources are careful to frame her alleged motivation in institutional terms. The Royal Archives exist to preserve an accurate historical record, a complete record, one that serves historians and the public understanding of royal history rather than the reputational interests of specific individuals. Sources suggest Anne's alleged position is straightforward. The historical record of that period should be complete, accurate, unredacted by the preferences of people who would rather certain aspects of it remained in darkness. Camilla is one of those people. Because a complete and accurate historical record of the Wales marriage and its collapse is not a comfortable document for the current queen consort. It never was. It simply never mattered before because the materials were controlled by an institution that had strong reasons to keep them contained. Sources suggest Anne is allegedly asking questions about whether those reasons still hold, whether history deserves the full story, and whether the woman now sitting beside the king at every state occasion has any right to shape how the most painful chapter of Diana's life is remembered. The answer Anne allegedly keeps reaching, sources suggest, is no, And that answer allegedly has implications for Camilla that go far beyond any property dispute or payroll decision. What William is doing simultaneously with his financial leverage to reinforce exactly the same message. That is what comes next. William's financial leverage, the duchy as a weapon.
In terms of, doing the job and things like that,
In 2025, the Duchy of Cornwall generated approximately £30 million in a single year. Tenant farms, holiday cottages, the Isles of Scilly, Dartmoor land rights, commercial investments accumulated across nearly 700 years of royal estate management. Every pound of it controlled entirely by William, not advised by William, not managed in consultation with William, controlled by William, solely, completely, with no requirement to seek approval from Charles, from Camilla, or from anyone else inside that palace. That level of financial autonomy is not symbolic, it is real and documented, and sources suggest William has been using it with a precision that people inside Camilla's circle are only now fully appreciating. What is already verified and publicly reported: Annabelle Elliot, Camilla's younger sister, interior designer, on the duchy payroll for nearly 20 years under Charles, paid between £19,000 and £82,000 annually, depending on the scale of projects she managed across duchy properties. The moment William inherited the duchy after Queen Elizabeth's death, Annabelle Elliot disappeared from the financial records. No announcement, no dispute on the record, just a name that stopped appearing in the duchy's published accounts. Royal commentator Emmy Griffiths noted it directly. Annabelle had been working across duchy properties under Charles. William took over and removed her. Griffiths described the reaction inside royal circles as causing significant ripples. Ripples. That word again. The same word that gets used when people want to acknowledge that something serious happened without fully stating how serious it was. Because William did not simply remove Annabelle Elliot, he replaced her with his own people, trusted figures from his personal inner circle. The godparents of his children were given roles connected to the estate, people whose loyalty is to William specifically and exclusively. The message was deliberate, unmistakable, and according to sources, it was only the beginning. How far does William's alleged financial campaign against Camilla's family actually extend? Because the Annabelle Elliot removal is documented and public, but sources suggest what has happened since goes considerably further. Access to crown events, proximity to official royal occasions. Invitations that had previously been extended to members of Camilla's wider circle quietly withdrawn. Scheduled appearances where Parker Bowles family members had expected to be present restructured without explanation. The same slow, deliberate, deniable narrowing of access that characterized the Elliot situation applied more broadly across every connection between Camilla's family and the institution William controls. Nothing that generates a single headline on its own. Everything that adds up to something unmistakable when you see it as a pattern. Then there is the Diana dimension. Sources suggest William has been quietly redirecting certain duchy-connected philanthropic resources toward causes Diana originally championed. Not announced, not framed publicly as symbolic. Just a reallocation that people paying close attention have noticed and sources describe as entirely intentional.
to have really gone about trying to really learn about what feelings.
Mental health, homelessness, HIV awareness. The causes Diana made her own during her lifetime. The causes the establishment initially resisted her championing because they were considered too raw, political, and too human for a senior royal to touch directly. Diana touched them anyway, and paid a significant institutional price for her willingness to do so. Now her son controls £1.2 billion worth of assets and £30 million of annual income. And sources suggest he is choosing to point a portion of that toward exactly the places his mother pointed when the institution she belonged to was actively trying to contain her. That is not a coincidence. Sources suggest it is the opposite of a coincidence. Anne understands exactly what William is doing. Sources suggest she has privately expressed something that in anyone less disciplined might be described as satisfaction. Because the combination of what Anne is allegedly doing with the archives and what William is allegedly doing with the duchy represents something sources describe as a two-front operation: history and money, the past and the future, both allegedly being reshaped simultaneously by the two people in this family who had the most personal reasons to reshape them. And Camilla, sources suggest, is caught directly in the middle, with no obvious way out. What is happening to her ceremonial footprint at the same time makes her position even more precarious. Erasing the footprint, patronages, symbols, and the slow disappearing act.
An Ireland tiara, I think, was a fabulous choice. So possibly what...
Camilla walked into Westminster Abbey on the 6th of May, 2023, wearing the Girls of Great Britain and Ireland tiara. Queen Elizabeth's personal favorite, the tiara that appeared on British banknotes for decades. The one that generations of British people associate instinctively and exclusively with the late Queen's face. Wearing it was a statement, a deliberate, carefully chosen signal that Camilla had arrived, that her position was legitimate, that the woman the public once blamed for destroying Diana's marriage had been fully absorbed into the institution Diana spent her life trying to change. For Camilla's supporters, it was a triumphant moment. For others inside that palace, sources suggest, it was something else entirely, a clock starting, because that tiara will one day sit on Catherine's head, as Queen Consort, as the woman who represents the next generation of this monarchy. And when that day comes, the symbolic transfer will be so complete, so total, so unmistakable, that everything Camilla's coronation moment represented will effectively be overwritten. Sources suggest Anne and William both understand this perfectly, and they are not waiting passively for that day to arrive. Because in royal life, symbols are not decoration, they are power. The specific objects, ceremonies, and patronages associated with the crown communicate something to the public and to the institution itself about who matters, who belongs, and whose legacy endures.
How much you do on this cause, so it's fantastic for us to have an opportunity to talk about economic abuse.
Camilla has spent 2 decades accumulating those symbols: royal patronages, charitable associations, ceremonial roles that connect her publicly to causes and institutions that give her position, substance, and legitimacy beyond simply being Charles's wife. Sources suggest that accumulation is allegedly being interrupted. When Queen Elizabeth died, she held hundreds of royal patronages. The redistribution of those patronages among working royals has been ongoing since 2022, a careful, managed process that determines which royal is publicly associated with which institution going forward. Sources suggest Anne has allegedly been involved in certain patronage decisions in ways that have quietly shaped that redistribution. Specific high-profile patronages that were being positioned for Camilla have allegedly been redirected. Not dramatically, not through any announced decision that could be pointed to publicly. Just a quiet reallocation that sources describe as reflecting priorities rather than logistics. William's role in the symbolic dimension runs parallel. In 2025, Charles granted William and Kate the authority to issue royal warrants, the ability to publicly endorse brands and products on behalf of the crown. Monarchs have historically guarded this privilege with extraordinary care. Extending it to William and Kate was not a minor administrative adjustment. It was a public signal about where the crown's symbolic weight is being deliberately repositioned, toward the next generation, toward William and Catherine, away from the current reign and everything associated with it, including Camilla. Then there is the documentary and historical display question. Sources suggest decisions currently being made about how the reign of Charles III is being documented. Official photographs, historical displays, crown documentary projects are reflecting William and Anne's priorities about how this period of royal history should be remembered. Who is centered, who is peripheral, whose presence in the visual record of this reign is prominent, and whose is quietly minimized. Sources describe these decisions as consequential in ways that will only become fully apparent over time. Royal history is shaped by what gets preserved and how. The visual record of a reign becomes the historical record, and the historical record becomes legacy. Camilla's legacy, sources suggest, is allegedly being shaped right now by people who have very specific views about what it should contain, and Camilla allegedly knows it. Sources describe her private reaction to the cumulative weight of these symbolic moves as the response of someone watching their own carefully constructed image being methodically and permanently dismantled. Not in one dramatic moment, in 100 quiet ones, each individually deniable, collectively devastating, and allegedly coordinated by the 2 people in this family with the most personal investment in getting the historical record right. What all of this is doing to Camilla's daily reality inside the palace is where this story goes next. Camilla's darkest days, what she is allegedly losing. Camilla sold Ray Milhouse quietly. No press release or lifestyle magazine feature celebrating her decision to downsize. There was no carefully managed announcement explaining her reasoning to a curious public. Just a property that appeared on the market and disappeared from her portfolio. The Wiltshire retreat she had owned since before she married Charles. The place she described publicly as her personal escape. The garden she called the best therapy in the world. Gone. Sources suggest the sale tells you more about Camilla's current state of mind than anything she has said publicly in months. Because people do not sell their personal sanctuaries casually. They do not part with the one place that belongs entirely to them. That predates everything that came after and represents the last piece of an independent identity, unless something has shifted fundamentally in how they see their own future. Camilla sold Ray Milhouse, and sources suggest she did it because she is beginning to understand, with a clarity that is reportedly deeply uncomfortable, that her future is considerably narrower than her present. What exactly is Camilla losing? Not in abstract terms. Not as a general narrative of diminishing influence. Concretely, specifically. What is allegedly being taken away, and what does that mean practically for the woman who spent 30 years fighting to sit beside the king? The property picture, because it is the most tangible dimension of what she faces. Right now, Camilla lives across multiple royal residences. Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, Sandringham, Balmoral. The full infrastructure of a reigning queen consort with access to the most significant private royal properties in existence. That picture changes completely when Charles dies. Sandringham passes to William. Balmoral passes to William. Buckingham Palace becomes William and Catherine's primary official residence. The properties Camilla currently moves through as of right become properties she can only access at William's invitation. Sources suggest Camilla's likely inheritance consists of Clarence House, valued at approximately £72 million, and Highgrove valued at around £39 million, significant assets by any normal measure, completely inadequate as a substitute for the position she currently occupies. She would go from queen consort with the full weight of the monarchy behind her to a private citizen queen dowager in title, living in 2 houses at the discretion of a man who grew up watching what she did to his mother. Sources suggest Camilla understands this arithmetic perfectly. Then there is the family dimension. Annabelle Elliot gone from the duchy payroll. Tom Parker Bowles' access to royal spaces allegedly finished following the Balmoral situation. The Parker Bowles family's broader proximity to crown events and royal occasions quietly narrowing. The institutional footprint that Camilla's marriage to Charles created for her children and siblings being systematically reduced. Camilla has spent 20 years building a network of access and association for her family inside the institution she married into. Sources suggest William is dismantling it piece by piece, with a patience and a thoroughness that speaks to genuine long-term intent rather than temporary displeasure.
Yes, we 100% live together, and we are always going to be together. And
then there is the Sarah Ferguson problem. Camilla's decades-long friendship with Sarah Ferguson has become an institutional liability of the First Order. Ferguson's name appears in the Epstein files released by the United States Department of Justice. There is no evidence of criminal wrongdoing on her part, but the association is real and documented. And in the context of Andrew's arrest and the ongoing fallout, sources suggest William has made his position on that friendship completely clear. Distance yourself, publicly, permanently, or accept the consequences of the association. Camilla has not fully complied. Sources suggest she views ending a friendship that predates her royal life as both unfair and personally impossible. William views her continued loyalty to Sarah as evidence of exactly the kind of judgment failure that justifies his concerns about Camilla's fitness to represent the institution going forward. That standoff is ongoing, unresolved, and sources suggest it is costing Camilla influence inside the palace with every week it continues. The sum total of all of this, the properties, family access, patronages, symbolic erasure, and the Sarah Ferguson standoff, paints a picture. A picture of a woman whose position is allegedly eroding from multiple directions simultaneously. Sources describe Camilla's private demeanor during this period as markedly different from the confident, settled queen consort the public sees at official engagements. Behind the composed public appearances, sources suggest, is a woman who is counting what she has left and finding the number smaller than she expected. Charles paralyzed, the king who cannot protect his queen. Charles made a phone call to Anne in February of this year that sources describe as one of the most difficult conversations between the two siblings in decades. Not angry or accusatory, not the kind of call that generates a dramatic confrontation that people remember and recount later. Quiet, pained. The call of a man who understands exactly what his sister is doing and exactly why she is doing it and finds himself completely unable to argue against it with any real conviction. Sources suggest the call lasted 40 minutes and ended with nothing resolved. That detail tells you everything about where Charles sits in this story. Not as a king wielding authority, not as a husband defending his wife. As a man caught between two realities that cannot be reconciled and lacking the physical and emotional resources to force a resolution in either direction. How does a reigning monarch end up powerless to protect his own queen consort from forces operating inside his own family? The answer requires understanding Charles's actual condition with honesty rather than the managed optimism that official palace communications have generally preferred.
Experience that a cancer diagnosis can feel overwhelming.
Charles is 76 years old. He was diagnosed with cancer in February 2024. The specific type has never been publicly disclosed. Treatment began immediately and continued throughout 2024 and into 2025. He has maintained his public duties across that period with a discipline that deserves genuine acknowledgement. But discipline is not the same as strength, and maintaining appearances is not the same as having the capacity to fight on multiple fronts simultaneously. Sources suggest Charles's energy for managing complex internal family dynamics has diminished significantly over the past 18 months. The decisions that require sustained attention, repeated engagement, and the willingness to absorb ongoing conflict are precisely the decisions he is least equipped to make right now. Protecting Camilla from William and Anne requires all three. It requires telling William to restore access and privileges to people William has deliberately removed. William would not comply, and Charles knows it. It requires telling Anne to stop whatever she is allegedly doing with the archives. Anne would not comply, and Charles knows that too. It meant positioning himself publicly against his heir and his sister simultaneously in defense of the woman millions of people still associate with his first wife's suffering. The political and personal cost of that position is one Charles cannot afford, and sources suggest he knows it. So he makes phone calls that end with nothing resolved, and he watches. Now here's the dimension of Charles's position that sources describe as the most painful of all. He knows why William and Anne feel the way they feel. He was there in the cause of it. He is the man who conducted the affair that Diana described in terms of profound personal devastation. He is the man whose choices created the wound that William and Anne are allegedly now trying to address in the only ways available to them. How do you argue against your son's grief over his mother when you are the reason that grief exists? How do you tell your sister that protecting your wife's position is more important than honoring the sister-in-law who suffered as a direct consequence of your own choices? Sources suggest Charles cannot make either of those arguments with genuine conviction because he does not fully believe them himself. He loves Camilla. That is real and documented and not in question. But love and conviction are different things. And sources suggest Charles' ability to mount a convincing defense of Camilla's position is undermined at its foundation by his own knowledge of what his relationship with her cost Diana. There is a private comment Charles allegedly made to a senior aide during this period that sources describe as revealing in its simplicity. He did not express anger at William. He did not express frustration with Anne. He allegedly expressed something much harder to sit with, understanding. The understanding of a man who knows that the people allegedly moving against his wife are doing so for reasons he himself created, and who has no answer for that. Diana's ultimate victory. What justice actually looks like. On the 31st of August 1997, a 15-year-old boy was woken in the middle of the night at Balmoral Castle and told his mother was dead. No warning, preparation, or a chance to say goodbye. Just a knock on a door. And a world that changed permanently in the seconds that followed. William has never spoken in detail about that moment publicly.
William and Harry walked behind their mother's coffin.
He has never described what those first hours felt like. What it was like to absorb that information as a child, while knowing that within days he would be required to grieve publicly in front of the entire world. He has never needed to describe it, because anyone watching him walk behind that coffin through the streets of London on the 6th of September 1997 already understood. A boy of 15, back straight, eyes forward, grief locked somewhere behind a composure that no child should ever be required to maintain. That image never left the public consciousness. It never left William either. And sources suggest it is the image that sits underneath every decision he has allegedly been making. About Camilla's position inside the institution his mother loved and suffered inside simultaneously. What does justice for Diana actually look like in 2026? Not as a concept, not as an emotional aspiration, practically, concretely. What are William and Anne allegedly building that represents something Diana would have recognized as meaningful? Because revenge and justice are not the same thing. And understanding the difference between them is essential to understanding what sources suggest is actually happening inside that palace. Simple revenge would look like Camilla destroyed, humiliated publicly, stripped of everything she worked for in a single dramatic moment that satisfies the appetite for poetic justice, but leaves nothing constructive in its place. That is not what sources describe William and Anne as building. What sources describe is something more patient, more permanent, more meaningful than any single dramatic act of institutional humiliation could ever be. A monarchy shaped by Diana's values rather than the values of the institution that failed her. Think about what Diana actually stood for publicly, not the fairy tale image, the substance. She touched AIDS patients at a time when the medical establishment was still treating the disease as something shameful. She walked through active minefields in Angola to make a political point about weapons that were killing civilians. She sat with homeless people and held their hands and looked them in the eye and treated them as human beings worthy of a future queen's full attention. She did all of this against the active resistance of an institution that found her emotional directness threatening, her public popularity destabilizing, and her willingness to speak plainly about her own suffering completely unacceptable. She was right about all of it, and the institution was wrong. William knows this, not as historical analysis, as lived experience. He watched his mother be right while the institution punished her for it. Now he runs the institution. Sources suggest his modernization agenda is not simply good management practice. It is Diana in institutional form. The emotional intelligence, she was told, was inappropriate. The public accountability, she was told, was dangerous. The genuine human connection, she was told, was beneath the dignity of a senior royal. All of it allegedly being built into the architecture of the monarchy William is constructing. Anne's contribution runs parallel. Her decades of quiet, unspectacular, genuinely impactful charitable work represents a living argument against the kind of performative royalty that prioritizes appearance over substance. Diana made that argument too. It cost her everything. Anne has been making it silently for 50 years without the personal cost Diana paid. And sources suggest she intends to keep making it in the institution's future, whether Camilla is comfortable with that legacy or not. Here is what sources suggest Camilla is slowly and allegedly painfully coming to understand. She won the battle. She got Charles and the title. She got the coronation and the tiara and the seat beside the king at every state occasion. But the war, sources suggest, was never about Charles. It was about Diana and what Diana represented, and whether the institution Diana tried to change would eventually become something worthy of the price she paid. William and Anne are allegedly building that institution now, not for revenge, for Diana. And Camilla, sources suggest, has no answer for that, no counter-strategy, no public relations campaign sophisticated enough to reframe what is happening around her. Because you cannot argue against a legacy. You cannot litigate grief. You cannot outmaneuver a son who watched his mother die and spent 28 years deciding what to do about it. Diana never got to see what the monarchy could become, but sources suggest she would recognize what her son is building. And sources suggest that recognition, more than any property dispute or payroll decision or symbolic tiara, is Camilla's darkest reality in decades. Not what she is losing, what she never truly had. Diana never got justice in her lifetime. She got a Paris tunnel, 2 boys without a mother, and a family that barely lowered its flag. But sources suggest something is happening inside that palace right now that she never lived to see. Her son and her sister-in-law moving together, quietly, permanently, allegedly reshaping everything Camilla built into something Diana would have recognized. Not revenge. Something better than revenge. Legacy. Was this the justice Diana deserved? Or did William and Anne go too far? Tell us in the comments, and if you want to know what William does next, that video is right here.